A listener note, this episode contains some adult language and themes.
As news of Aaron Hernandez's death broke, his former teammates were getting ready to take a trip to the White House.
No team has been this good for this long.
The Patriots had won the Super Bowl a few weeks earlier, the fifth under the team's owner, Robert Kraft.
He's built a culture dedicated to winning. And he started it with his coach, and I want to tell you, that is some special man.
Now they lined up on the South Lawn as President Trump singled out some of the players, and especially the coach, for praise.
It's called the Patriot Way, and that really starts with Coach Belichick. And I want to thank all of you for being with us. The Patriots are an incredible organization, and this Super Bowl victory was a complete team effort. That's the beauty of what they do. They win as a team.
We have a brief statement to read on behalf of Aaron Hernandez's family.
But days later, and about 340 miles away, a spokesperson for the Hernandez family stood outside a Bristol funeral home to give a very different statement.
The family of Aaron Hernandez wishes to thank the public for its thoughtful expressions of condolences. The family wishes to say...
In New England and beyond, reactions ranged from disbelief...
It's very hard for me to accept the fact that he may have committed suicide. We are keeping an open mind.
So you don't think that sounds like Aaron at all?
Not the Aaron that I know.
To anger...
He didn't have to kill himself. He took the cheap way out.
I'm sick and tired of going online and seeing all these people with the RIPs for Aaron Hernandez.
Yes. You think Odin Lloyd's family wants him to rest in peace?
Rest in hell, maybe.
Amid stunned reactions to Hernandez's suicide, new questions emerged about the role football had played in Aaron Hernandez's life and crimes. One of his attorneys, Jose Baez, said Hernandez experienced symptoms of brain injuries. He said Hernandez suffered in prison from migraines, memory lapses, and episodes of paranoia and depression.
The way he would describe it, a lot of very, very painful. In fact, he had all kinds of pain in his body. That's what a lot of NFL football players deal with, the constant pain, even at such a young age.
In death, Aaron Hernandez's brain would reveal the true cost of his lifetime of playing football, and it would spark a controversial debate. Did brain damage from football cause Aaron Hernandez's mental instability? Could it help explain his crimes? And did it ultimately lead him to take his own life? From the Boston Globe and Wondery, I'm Bob Hohler, and this is Gladiator, an investigative series about Aaron Hernandez and Football, Inc. This is the sixth and final episode, Beauty and Violence. We began this series with questions about Aaron Hernandez, about why he did what he did, and who could have stopped him. We've heard about how people who oversaw his football career, including coaches and agents, seemed to look the other way, even as he spiraled out of control. But there was another way that football changed Aaron Hernandez, one that could only be verified after his death. In life, he was a muscular 240 pounds. In death, the most important part of his body became his 3.5-pound brain. My colleague from the Spotlight team, Sasha Pfeiffer, picks up the story here.
Hernandez's family arranged for his body to be brought back to his hometown of Bristol, Connecticut for a funeral, and they made a decision that ultimately had huge implications. They gave permission for his brain to be studied. A Boston coroner removed Hernandez's brain and sent it to a research laboratory outside the city. It was a secretive operation to avoid attracting public attention. The brain was brought into the lab through an underground tunnel system, and only 3 people there knew whose brain it was. Then it was cut into slices, stained with a special dye, and examined under a microscope.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you all for coming.
About 7 months later, Dr. Ann McKee stepped on stage at a medical conference at Boston University and made an explosive announcement.
I know there's been a lot of interest in these findings, especially when you consider Aaron Hernandez's life. It may surprise you that this brain has been one of the most significant contributions to our work.
Dr. McKee is a neuropathologist who heads Boston University's CTE Center. That center has studied the brains of more than 330 dead football players. From a podium with a big screen behind her, McKee displayed images of two different brains. One was an ordinary 27-year-old's. The other was Aaron Hernandez's.
These are very unusual findings to see in an individual of this age. The next youngest individual with perforations and damage like this to the septum was 46 years old. So he's some 20 years younger when he's presenting with these findings.
McKee said Hernandez had a dramatic case of CTE. That's chronic traumatic encephalopathy. The disease can only be diagnosed after death because it requires removing the brain and analyzing its tissue. And it's believed to be caused by just one thing: repeated hits to the head. According to official tallies, Aaron Hernandez suffered 2 documented concussions during his football career, one in high school and one with the Patriots. But he started playing tackle football when he was 8 years old, so there's no doubt he took many other hits to the head that were never recorded. In the images Dr. McKee showed, the difference between the healthy brain and Hernandez's was obvious. When a brain has CTE, some parts of it shrink, others become enlarged. In certain areas, there's a buildup of a protein found in Alzheimer's patients, and Aaron Hernandez's brain had all those problems.
In every place that we looked, it was classic CTE. We also saw evidence of previous microhemorrhage or microbleeds, something we associated with head impacts and concussive injury, all of these caused by repetitive brain trauma.
There were about 24 journalists in the room with Dr. McKee. My Spotlight colleague Bob Hohler was one of them. He asked, point blank,
You could not connect the dots, as you said, between this and his behavior, but does it help you explain some of the aberrant behavior?
In any individual, we can't take the pathology and explain the behavior, but we can say collectively.
She said CTE severely affects the parts of the brain that control judgment, impulse control, social behavior, and emotional regulation. Whether Aaron Hernandez's brain damage affected his actions is a question with serious implications, not just for NFL players, but for every football player. And it's controversial. Dr. McKee's report triggered an immediate debate here in Boston. Since her big announcement, Dr. McKee has stopped talking publicly about Hernandez. She wouldn't speak with the Globe for this story. When I asked to interview her, a university spokeswoman said the only thing she won't talk about is Aaron Hernandez. But another neurologist would.
He died with a very sick brain.
Dr. Sam Gandy works at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York. He's an expert in head trauma, and he's looked at the scans of Hernandez's brain.
I have no idea of knowing how long his brain had been that impaired, but that brain was ravaged, was devastated.
There's a lot still not known about CTE, like what its risk factors are, what type of hits cause it, what quantity of hits, and whether genes play a role. There's also a lot unknown about the Hernandez case. But
the CTE that I've seen in Aaron Hernandez's brain is not subtle. It's really quite severe. It's impossible for me to look at the severity of CTE in Mr. Hernandez's brain and not think that that had a profound effect on his behavior.
And his behavior fits with what we know about CTE. Hernandez was quick to lash out, notorious for his bad judgment, and plagued by paranoia. But another Boston University researcher says a CTE connection is not so clear-cut. This is Dr. Bob Cantu.
It's interesting to think that impulsivity is one of the hallmarks of CTE. But I think if you'll reflect on some of the things he did, they were thought out.
Like the murder of Odin Lloyd. Prosecutors say that killing was planned. He was taken to a remote area and shot execution style. Or maybe Aaron Hernandez's drug use helps explain his troubling behavior, not his CTE. There's another important thing to point out. Of all the brains Boston University researchers have examined,
not one of those brains, with the exception of Aaron, were involved with homicide, to my knowledge. They all had CTE. So I think I'll just leave it at that.
When I started playing football in the 80s, there wasn't a vocabulary for concussions. There was, you got your bell rung, you got a stinger, you're blowing snot bubbles, or you got shit canned, or you got plowed over.
I had a few concussions, absolutely. Anytime you even see stars or anything like that, I think they're saying that is a concussion.
Brandon Lloyd and Dane Fletcher were teammates of Aaron Hernandez.
As a matter of fact, it was more a rite of passage to get a stinger, to get up and be dizzy. And the culture of football suggests that you rub some dirt on it, you shake it off, and you don't be a wuss about it, and you get back out there on the football field and continue playing.
I've had enough concussions to know that when I am concussed, A, I black out, and then B, I have the best dreams of my life, just the craziest dreams I've ever thought. So when people think that they're concussed, I'm like, pay attention to your dreams tonight. You're gonna be doing circus flips in your head. It's gonna be wild.
I cringe now. I cringe now when I see those hits. But when I was suited up on the sideline, I would cheer. Those type of hits, when my team was delivering them to the other team, that's what the game is all about. That's the culture of football, is to take out the other players. Take out the best player on the team. And the most violent way is the culture of football.
It's scary. I mean, you just see it, and the stats are there, and that's why I came back to Montana, started my gym, and work for something every day to keep my mind busy as much as I can, so I don't sit at home and just think about, how my body's corroding.
But if you ask Lloyd and Fletcher if they do it all over again, knowing what they know now,
it's so worth the risk to be out there playing, to make $1 million to go to the NFL. And then you get to the NFL and it's still worth the risk to make more money. And then you add on to it the fan base and the ego associated with all this.
I know how stubborn I was as a kid. It's hard for me to tell some kid not to follow their dreams.
The risk of injury in football is always there. Football players in general weigh much more than they did decades ago. Some players say on-field collisions feel like being in a car crash or multiple car crashes on every play of every game. For years, the NFL said there was no link between CTE and football, but the league has finally started to admit to a connection. The year before Aaron Hernandez died, Dr. McKee addressed a congressional panel about CTE.
And the other thing I really want to emphasize is it's not about concussions. It's about limiting head injury that occurs on every single play of the game at every single level of this game. To me, what our job is to maintain the health of these.
Soon after McKee finished speaking, an NFL spokesman on the same panel publicly acknowledged for the very first time a relationship between CTE and football. It was an admission many people had been waiting years to hear, and it came in response to a question from Representative Jan Schakowsky.
Right. Is there a link?
Yeah.
Because we feel that, or I feel that, that was not the unequivocal answer 3 days before the Super Bowl by Dr. Mitchell Berger.
Well, I'm not going to speak for Dr. Berger.
Except you're speaking for the NFL, right?
You asked the question as whether I thought there was a link, and I think certainly based on Dr. McKee's research, there's a link because she's found CTE in a number of retired football players. I think that the broader point, and the one that your question gets to, is what that necessarily means and where do we go from here with that information.
Despite knowing the medicine, the NFL denied the serious consequences of concussions and subconcussions.
That's Kenneth Colpan, a Boston lawyer. He's suing Aaron Hernandez's estate on behalf of the family of Daniel De Abreu, one of the men Hernandez was charged with killing in that Boston double homicide. Hernandez was acquitted in that case, but there was strong evidence he played at least some role in their deaths. I asked Colpan why he thinks the NFL denied football's effects on the brain for so long.
Protecting their product. Protecting their product. This research has been there since the 1940s. For the NFL to deny it until recently is to deny the science.
The holidays are the busiest time of the year, especially at the post office. That's why you need Stamps.com. Stamps.com brings all the services of the U.S. Post Office right to your desktop. You can buy and print official U.S. postage for any letter, any package, any class of mail using your own computer and printer. Then the mail carrier picks it up. No trips to the post office required. It couldn't be easier. Stamps.com not only saves you time, it saves you money. Because when you're printing the right amount of postage every time, you'll never overpay again. And with Stamps.com, you get discounts on postage you can't even get at the post office. With all the time and money you'll save, Stamps.com is the best gift you can give yourself this holiday season. Right now, you can enjoy the Stamps.com service with a special offer that includes a 4-week trial, plus postage, and a digital scale without long-term commitments. Just go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage, and type in Gladiator. That's Stamps.com, enter Gladiator. You spend a third of your life in sheets. Isn't it about time for a bedding upgrade? You don't have to do a bunch of research to find the best either, because I'm going to help you out. Just go to brooklinen.com. I'm going on about a month of sleeping on Brooklinen sheets, and I feel great. I got the LuxeCore option in steel and duvet cover in solid smoke. I love the look, I love the feel. I look forward to going to sleep all day long. They really are that great. My Brooklinen sheets are the best, most comfortable sheets I've ever slept on. Now it's time for your upgrade. Brooklinen.com has an exclusive offer just for listeners of this show. Get $20 off and free shipping when you use promo code GLADIATOR at brooklinen.com. Brooklinen is so confident in their product that all their sheets, comforters, and towels come with a lifetime warranty. The only way to get $20 off and free shipping is to use promo code GLADIATOR at brooklinen.com. That's BROOKLINEN.com. Promo code GLADIATOR. Brooklinen. These really are the best sheets ever.
It took a long time for CTE to become mainstream news. But now that it has, that's hurting football. Pop Warner leagues are seeing a decline in membership. Even some NFL players are bailing out. One of them is Chris Borland. He's now 27, the same age Aaron Hernandez was when he died.
It was like a one split second of darkness, and then I'm on the ground and awake.
When Borland was a high school sophomore, he got a concussion in a football game.
And I kind of stumbled to the sidelines and right near the trainer, and she knew right away that I'd been concussed.
But Borland went on to play in the NFL, just like Hernandez, and he believes he suffered many more concussions. He just wouldn't report them because he'd learned early on about Wally Pipp.
Wally Pipp was the first baseman for the Yankees who set out with a headache one day, and Lou Gehrig steps in at first base and sets the record for consecutive games started. So that's a lesson that coaches try to teach players.
In other words, come out of the game and you may never go back in. As a result,
players will stay in by any means necessary.
Even if that means playing through pain or with a head injury. For years, Borland didn't worry about how all those collisions might be affecting his brain. Not until his third year at the University of Wisconsin, where he played college football.
Have led to the tragic death of a beloved athlete. Junior Seau was found dead in his Southern California home of an apparent suicide.
Junior Seau was a linebacker for the New England Patriots and San Diego Chargers. In 2012, when he was 43 years old, he shot himself in the chest.
Junior was beloved by everyone and gregarious and had his own TV show and seemed like he had everything in his world was going his way. So that was the first time where I was taken aback and thought, wow.
Seau is one of 20 NFL players who've taken their lives since 2005. His family believes he killed himself the way he did so he could preserve his brain. 5 brain specialists have since said Seau's brain had CTE. Chris Borland kept playing college ball. After graduating, he signed with the San Francisco 49ers, but his concerns about his brain kept nagging at him, so he did some research.
I started from a place where I didn't know what CTE stood for, and as I began to read about it and learn about it, I just had a really difficult time justifying continuing. Players with far more likely to develop not only CTE, but dementia and ALS and other horrible, debilitating neurodegenerative diseases.
Still, Borland had a great season with the NFL. He was even named a Defensive Rookie of the Month. But then he reached a conclusion.
I said, yeah, this is going to be it. I can't justify continuing to do this.
Borland walked away from a contract worth nearly $3 million.
I had a phone conversation one by one with people that were important to me in life, and I felt like there were coaches and a couple of administrators and fellow teammates where I felt the need to tell them beforehand. I expected it to be a story, but not what it became. I thought it'd be a story on ESPN one day, or maybe do a series of interviews, and I found myself on CBS This Morning and Face the Nation, and it became almost a national story. We don't need to be incredulous as to why people who've hit their head 10,000 times are suffering later in life. I think for the sake of the next generation, we can act now.
But action will require overcoming some deep-rooted ideas about football. Borland remembers that when he was a teenager, a new helmet came out that was supposed to significantly reduce the risk of concussions. The federal government later said that claim was based on faulty science. But Borland used that helmet, and he remembers being called soft for wearing it.
I mean, it's absurd. That said, I also can understand. I was one of those kids that, wanted to be tough. And I think a lot of kids are drawn to football because it's a man's game.
Borland also recalls high school coaches talking about how football builds character.
I think it teaches you to show up on time, to work hard, to be a part of something bigger than yourself, but that isn't exactly character. And there's plenty of evidence to the contrary, whether or not brain injury played a role in it. There's a lot of players who are really bad guys, a lot who are great, but there's really a lot of bad guys who excel at football. It's not as if you slip on the pads and put on the helmet and then you have character.
Borland doesn't think there's a simple answer to whether CTE alone accounts for Aaron Hernandez's crimes.
I don't think it's fair that the narrative is, man plays football, man contracts a brain disease and therefore becomes a killer. I think it's far more complicated than that, but I do think it may have played a role.
There's a bigger question here. Is football fundamentally dangerous? Jeffrey Montez Dioka believes it is. He's a University of Colorado professor who studies the role of sports in society.
I believe that the reforms in the game have probably made football a more dangerous game. Football is a violent game. Violence is the purpose of the game. Violence is at the center of the game. The violence gets rationalized in that sense, and then it can be used, it's believed, for pro-social purposes. Instilling discipline, instilling camaraderie, instilling teamwork, and making boys into men.
Since Chris Borland retired, he's committed himself to raising awareness about the safety risks in football. And he's pledged that once he dies, he'll donate his brain to Boston University's Brain Bank, the same place that examined Hernandez's brain.
It's a phrase you hear all the time. Work smarter, not harder. Well, when you're looking to hire, going through a job site that makes you wait for the right candidates to apply to your job doesn't seem smart. But you know what is smart? Going to ZipRecruiter.com/Gladiator to find your next great hire. Unlike other job sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't wait for candidates to find you. ZipRecruiter finds them for you. Its powerful matching technology scans thousands of resumes, identifies people with the right skills, education, and experience for your job, and actively invites them to apply. So you get qualified candidates fast. No more sorting through the wrong resumes, no more waiting for the right candidates to apply. It's no wonder that ZipRecruiter is rated #1 by employers in the U.S. By the way, that #1 rating comes from hiring sites on Trustpilot, with over 1,000 reviews. Right now, as a listener of this show, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/gladiator. That's ZipRecruiter.com/GLADIATOR. ZipRecruiter.com/gladiator. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
The question of whether CTE played a role in Aaron Hernandez's violence is now a matter for the courts.
For so long, prior to us finding out Aaron's diagnosis, I can't tell you how much I struggled with what I could have done differently, what I could have and should have done.
Jose Baez is a lawyer for Hernandez's family.
When I was finally told what his condition was, it all made sense to me.
Last year, Baez filed a lawsuit against the NFL for Hernandez's fiancée and daughter. The suit claims the league failed to protect Hernandez from the danger of concussions.
There's nothing worse than a brain injury. You have no control over many things. There's nothing, a sickness in the brain is as worse as it gets. You know, the NFL can't hide behind their shield. They think they can, but they really can't. You're asking these individuals to sacrifice their brains for a game, and you know the results of those actions. And the second they start to manifest the symptoms of damaging their brains, you cut them loose. And I don't believe the NFL should do that to its players.
Baez's lawsuit is still pending, and there are many, many more active lawsuits related to football brain damage with a lot of money at stake. Concerns about head injuries in football go back to the late 1800s. The premier place to play football then was the Ivy League. In 1905, at least 18 players died on the football field, often from skull fractures. That prompted Columbia and Northwestern to drop their teams. Then President Teddy Roosevelt stepped in. He was a big outdoorsman who believed modern society was making men soft and football could toughen them up.
I wish to see you boys join the body and act in that body in the same way I'd expect any one of you to act in a football game. In other words, don't flinch, don't foul, and hit the line hard.
So he held a White House summit to try to make the game safer, and that led to rule changes and better equipment. But more than 100 years later, we're still asking if football can ever truly be safe. Is it a reasonable decision to let young children play tackle football? My colleague Bob Hohler, as you may remember, has a real stake in this issue. He has an 8-year-old grandson with dreams of NFL stardom.
You know, it's something Logan's parents and I continue to wrestle with. Many young boys see the glamour and greatness of football. They see players charge out onto the field in flashy uniforms with state-of-the-art helmets and pads. They want to be them. Millions of us watch from the stands and on TV. Super Bowl Sunday is practically a national holiday. 9 of the 10 most watched TV broadcasts in U.S. history were Super Bowls, 4 of them involving the New England Patriots. Football showcases incredible athletic feats, creates community spirit, instills discipline, and it can be your way out of poverty.
There's a combination of both violence and beauty. There's a ballet-like quality to football when you watch receivers going out for passes or running backs shifting as they go through the line of scrimmage and avoiding defenders as they run up the field.
But at what cost?
At the same time, on every single play, you have extraordinarily large men smashing into each other.
Montez de Oca believes Aaron Hernandez fascinates us, not just for the tabloid sensationalism of his life. For him, this story illuminates all the potential and possibility of America's game, and also its ugly underbelly.
Aaron Hernandez offers a kind of wonderful morality tale in a certain way that here is this guy who works really hard, who develops his skills, who's incredibly successful, and becomes an outstanding tight end in the National Football League. However, because of who he is as an individual, he's unable to control his violent and emotional outbursts. He makes for this incredibly rich story that illustrates all of these other larger issues going on in football.
Those larger issues loom over the game today, and not just at the professional level. At the start of this series, I mentioned my grandson, Logan. At 8 years old, he's eligible now to play tackle football.
Here comes the Mighty Mites.
He plays in a flag football league where he has thrown a touchdown pass, and he loves the game. He has tried on a helmet worn by Odin Lloyd's football team, the Boston Bandits, and he wants to join his friends in a youth tackle league. I'd really love to see him pursue his dream to play tackle football. But I've seen the research, and I've talked to former players who will never recover from the brain damage they suffered on the football field. I've come away thinking, no sport should cause that kind of pain. And just to be clear, I don't believe playing tackle football will turn a kid into a killer like Aaron Hernandez. But I do worry about the health risks of a childhood spent playing a gladiator sport. Sadly, I don't think I want my grandson playing America's game. But still, football tugs at many of us. It's part of our culture, part of who we are. In 2012, a few days before Hernandez is set to play in Super Bowl 46, his mom Terry stands in front of a crowd of screaming, waving children in an elementary school gym in Bristol, Connecticut. It's the school Hernandez attended as a boy. Terry is the secretary there. The kids wear Patriots t-shirts and jerseys emblazoned with Hernandez's number, 81. He is a hero to some of them. They break into a dance routine. And a local Channel 4 news reporter interviews Terry.
Every parent hopes to raise their kid to turn out to be something great, but to turn out to be now a role model. You have dozens of kids here who want to be your son.
Aaron has a kind heart. He's a great coach.
The students give Terry a bouquet of flowers and a sash that says Super Bowl Mom. She sits in front of them, and as a video message plays for the kids, her eyes well with tears.
Keep your head high, stay focused, and be happy. And one thing I want to say is I'm glad I was able to talk to you guys. I hope you guys take it in and listen. Have a great future, and make sure you listen to all your teachers, do good in school, and hopefully the best happens for all you guys. Hopefully you guys are watching me in the Super Bowl. It's going to be a great game, baby. Have fun, and hopefully you guys do good in school and finish the year right. Talk to you soon.
From the Boston Globe and Wondery, this is the final episode of Gladiator, our 6-part series about who could have made a difference in the life of one young man. If you'd like to help us spread the word, please give us a review and tell your friends to subscribe. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, NPR One, and every major listening app, as well as Wondery.com. We'll be back next week with a special interview episode, where I will answer questions about the process my colleagues and I went through to report this story. If you're listening on a smartphone, tap or swipe over the cover art of this podcast. You'll find the episode notes, including some details you may have missed. You'll also find some offers from our sponsors. Please support our show by supporting them. And thank you. You can also read the print series of Gladiator at bostonglobe.com/gladiator. Special thanks to the Bristol Press and Michael Razzi for the use of his recording from the elementary school Super Bowl celebration. Gladiator was written, reported, and hosted by me, Bob Hohler, and by Beth Healy, Sasha Pfeiffer, Andrew Ryan, and our Spotlight editor, Patricia Wen. We'd also like to give special thanks to Globe editors Brian McGrory, Scott Allen, Mark Morrow, and Janice Page, Spotlight's data specialist Todd Wallach, and reporter Maria Kramer. Gladiator was produced by Amy Padula, sound design by Jeff Schmidt, archival research by Rosemary Rotundi, additional production help from Pallavi Kodamasu, Katie McMurrin, and Eliza Dennis. Executive produced by George Lavender, Marcia Louie, and Hernan Lopez for Wondery.